Hey. All right, ladies and gentlemen, put a 1 in the chat if you can hear the sound of my voice. Put a 1 in the chat. Good evening, good evening, good evening. Good evening. Wow, man. First and foremost, how is everyone doing tonight? How's everyone doing tonight? I know you guys have been waiting. And I want to say, ladies and gentlemen, when I send my tweet out, there were things happening behind the scenes that I just couldn't tell you. I couldn't tell you. The story had to go through the research, vet it, and ladies and gentlemen, I'm sorry, where I'm at, my internet may be a little shoddy, but we're here. We are here, ladies and gentlemen. And first and foremost, I want you guys to understand that there are many moving parts in this case involving Sean Puffy Combs. I call him Puff because I know him as Puff. You'll call him Diddy. I know him as Puffy. But this is an interesting development in the case involving Mr. Combs and his selection into attorneys. Very strategic move, I would say, ladies and gentlemen. A very strategic move. And for those who don't know, the story just went up on TMZ. It is on TMZ right now, 6-7 minutes ago. I told you guys to stand by, stand by. People are saying, what is it, Mr. Byron? Why you got to say stand by? Because you got to stand by. There are many moving parts in this story, and we just can't jump out there. You know, we can't do that. We can't do that. And those who've been following for many years know how to get down. I don't just jump out the window. We want to dot our I's and cross our T's. And this is a major development in the case involving Sean Puffy Combs. Today, attorney Nicole Westmoreland joined officially his camp. Now, you've seen her moving back and forth with Mr. Brian Still in this case, but Ms. Moreland was not officially of record as his attorney up until today. And the information that is now revealed, I actually covered this case many, many years ago. And I knew about it when I covered the YSL, but I never said anything. And you guys, you got to do your research. However, this now is a very, very interesting development in the case. And some of you will say, why? So I'm going to be joined in with attorney Akeisha L. Shabbass, and she's going to talk about why this is so significant for the defense. And this may be one of the best strategy moves that they can use in representing their client, because it is my belief that Ms. Westmoreland will be cross-examining Cassie Ventura. Think about that for a second. She will likely be cross-examining an alleged SA victim. And when I tell you what happened to Miss Westmoreland back then was horrific. It was awful. And the individual ended up serving time for that. But this was a younger Westmoreland. And just think about that. Her coming in as a defense attorney, cross-examining Cassie Ventura is a major, major power play for a number of reasons. One of the reasons is it was alleged during that period in time that it was $100,000 offer to Miss Westmoreland for her not to tell her story. She never took the money. As a matter of fact, she turned it down, and she alleged that Birdman offered her the money. This was her allegations, but she turned it down. She wanted to see the person responsible for this awful act to be prosecuted. And you ask yourself, why is that significant? She immediately went to the authorities when it happened. And we're going to go ahead and pull the story up. I have it right here, ladies and gentlemen. This is breaking on TMZ. And we want to go ahead and pull it up. Stand by. Here's the story. We're going to read it for those who just are joining in. Nicole Westmoreland, the newest lawyer on Diddy's team, is a survivor of sexual assault because she was allegedly because I know we're on YouTube, back in 2001. The powerhouse attorney, who's officially joined Diddy's team this morning, was just 19 years old back in 2001 when she worked for a company that helped people reinstate suspended driver's licenses. There go Miss Westmoreland arriving to court yesterday. According to Westmoreland, Brian Williams, vice president of Cash Money Records, and a man named Stone met her and asked her to make a sales pitch to the company at Patchwork Recording Studios in Atlanta. And let me say something. I know the owner of Patchwork, a very decent brother, Curtis. I've done events at Patchwork Studios. I've used Patchwork Studios for my clients in the past. And I will say that when this happened, Patchwork wasn't the Patchwork of today. Patchwork wasn't the Patchwork of today. Because at the time, Curtis didn't own the studio. But they have different and secure measures in place today. And I'll say that I want to, and shout out to Patchwork and shout out to Curtis, my guy Curtis, who's probably watching this live right now. He claims another man came to the door. During the evening, Westmoreland says that she went to use the restroom and Cleveland offered to show her where it was. Westmoreland says Cleveland got her to the bathroom, forced her inside, and her. She claims another man came to the door, during which Cleveland allegedly told him to keep guard and then allegedly tried to pass her off to him. But Nicole says she begged him not to and let her go, and he let her go. Westmoreland later said she was threatened about going to the police, but she did anyway. And Cleveland was arrested and charged with R. He ultimately pled guilty to aggravated assault with intent to rape. Of course, Diddy being accused of sexual assault and rape by numerous people with many civil cases against him is pending. The second day of jury selection in Diddy's federal criminal case, criminal trial wrapped up not long ago with another 16 potential jurors. And basically, we're going to get into what happened back then. I'm going to move this off the page, bring that up. And we're going to bring in the lovely, the incredible, the incomparable, the legal mind, the college professor, the former prosecutor, the extraordinary legal analyst. Ladies and gentlemen, to the stage attorney Aikisha Al Shabbass. Good evening, Ike. Good evening. Good evening. Where are you? Where are you at? Yes. Good evening.
I'll be right here. Good evening. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. I can hear you.
Wonderful. Good evening, Dennis?
Ike,
What's going on? Hey,
this,
family.
Wow. This right here, ladies and gentlemen. This is you're an attorney. What do you think about this story?
Well, first, it's terrible that her personal tribulations, are out there now for all to know. I know this must feel for her, like an invasion of privacy, even though it happened so long ago. These are not things that, as a woman, when you are a victim of these types of acts, that you forget. So I'm sure this is making her relive all of that again. And that's unfortunate. But then there are so many questions about, did the team know this prior to bringing her on? Was this a part of their strategy and or tactic to have someone with this type of background? Because we know the jurors are going to know. They're going to read the news, despite what they are told. And it's kind of hard to avoid the news. And they're going to pick this up, mainstream media, and it's going to be all over social media. And, it becomes the question of, is she being used as a pawn?
Interesting that you say that.
In this.
As a strategist, a defense attorney, what is the benefit of having her? And let's talk about what is the benefit of having her, who would likely cross-examine Cassie,
right? Because then, in some circles she may seem more a bona fide victim, right? Because even though she was threatened not to go to the police, she still went to the police. She still reported the rape. These are the things Cassie did not do, right? And so when you stand in contrast, and a jury has to determine victimization, if they're comparing, they're not going to see Cassie as a victim. They're going to see Miss Westmoreland as a victim, and she responded as we societally expect victims to respond. You go to the police, right? You seek justice in that manner. And then because I know there was a subsequent civil suit.
Absolutely.
But first, she went to the police, right? And Cassie didn't do that. Now, there's a lot of reasons, and they have experts that are going to come on and explain why women don't go to the police, why there's delayed reporting, and all of that. But, jurors still have this now hard fact, evidence, symbol of someone who suffered the same type of, at a recording studio, in the music industry, dealing with the potential threats and repercussions that could happen if you do tell, and then you still go and you tell. A jury might consider that.
So this happened.
They shouldn't. Let me say they shouldn't. But there are a lot of things that happen outside of court. A lot of intangibles that you can't control, you can't manage, right? And when you have a high publicity trial like this, these stories are going to permeate likely the walls that we try to put up around jurors. And, we don't know what impact it is. We don't know how the government might respond to this, right? The government might come to court and ask that she be removed from from his defense team.
How can that happen? Like, they can ask, but
they can say she has a conflict. And I think her civil suit, part of it was she sued Universal Studios. I think they they got summary judgment, but she did sue them. Does it? Isn't that part? Is that part of Puff's? Does he have anything to do with Universal? I don't know. I'm just, this is new, so we're just, poking in the dark here. But
let me say this. Back in 2001, and why is that so significant? 2001, Cash Money Records and Bad Boy Records were the top record labels back then. For those who don't remember, Cash Money Records just had an anniversary, 30-year anniversary. But in 2001, there was a Rough Rider Cash Money tour, and they both, this was a significant time for hip hop with two of the biggest record labels with multiple groups. You got to remember, Puff had several groups on his label, and so did Cash Money. Now, Miss Westmoreland at the time was, according to her, offered $100K. She never took the money. But what's going to come out is Cassie Ventura not only took the money, she demanded that he settle a lawsuit. And we know how that played out. She made a request for monies before the case was filed, and then she ultimately settled. Far different than what Miss Westmoreland did. So will the money aspect come into play in this case?
What do you mean? What Cassie did?
What the settlement leading up to?
So here's what happened. When you are suing someone for money, it's called a condition precedent, is that you must make a demand first, right? So that's part of the lawsuit. You are required to make a demand before you sue someone. So she could always say, I wasn't trying to do anything. This was procedural. My lawyers made the demand because that's what you have to do as a condition precedent to filing this type of lawsuit. So I don't know that it carries as much weight as some people think it would. I mean, of course, then you could spin it. Obviously, you didn't go to the police, and your recourse for your pain was monetary solely. At no time did you file a police report. You could have. You didn't file a police report until this case became investigated by the government. Now, I don't know if that's true. Maybe there's some discovery that points in a different direction, but based on what we've seen so far, right, that could be a line of inquiry.
Absolutely. As a former prosecutor, we know, first and foremost, Monday is opening arguments.
Monday, let's go.
Opening arguments will probably be the entire morning and maybe the whole day. I don't know. Maybe
it shouldn't be more than an hour each.
Okay. Well, this is federal. Federals run a tight ship.
Yeah, an hour each. That's what I'm saying. They're not going to take all morning.
Do you think they will lead with their most strongest witness?
The government?
Yes.
No, they'll probably start with some police witnesses talking about things that were recovered. Right? They'll probably start with the police witnesses that did the executions on the search warrants, the things that were recovered, and then they want to put all of that stuff into context. That's the way you get the jury curious about, well you need 1,000 bottles of baby oil for. Well, what is that about? And then you can put into context because you got to show where this evidence came from. So I think they may start that way. That's how I would start if I was a prosecutor.
Okay. I know you thought about, well, I don't know how heavy you thought about this, but what do you think the strongest things that the defense will point out in their opening, which is not evidence, but their opening? What do you think how they will start the opening?
They're going to harp on that this was all consensual. This was absolutely consensual, and while you may not like it or you may not be the type of person who would partake in these types of acts, doesn't make them criminal. Nothing here is criminal. Well, he's on trial for maybe morality. You know, I don't know what they're going to argue. I don't know how big they want to make this. I don't know if they're going to make the argument that, the government is only going after him because he's a black man. I don't think that argument carries the day. I wouldn't make it. I don't, it might turn the jury off, and you don't want to alienate the jury. So I wouldn't make that argument unless and until there's some evidence to support it. I would save that for summation. But I would ask them to keep an open mind. I would ask them not to be judgmental and to not decide this case before the evidence, all of it, is in, and I've had an opportunity to come back and speak to you again at summation, right? I'd ask them to, try to, as much as possible, to avoid reading news stories and social media posts and articles about the trial, because that often is inaccurate information, deliberately so. I would keep it simple. I wouldn't go crazy on it. I don't like to get in front of the evidence. I don't have anything to prove as a defense attorney, right? So I'm not going to tell the jury, you're going to hear this, you're going to hear that. Because what if I decide that I don't want to put on these people or that person for the defense? Then I've promised something that I'm not going to deliver. And that sometimes can shift the burden. And you never want to do that as a defense attorney. The burden should always remain squarely with the people, with the government. It's their burden. Let them carry it the entirety of the trial, right? So it's very strategic, a lot of tactical decisions that need to be made. And I can only say now, which I couldn't say before, I know that Xavier Donaldson has the tactical skill to do that. I just don't know how much say he has, being one of the last attorneys to come into this process. So we'll see.
Well, he came in on
Okay.
last Friday, and Miss Wallen officially was the attorney of record on today.
Yeah.
So
Why?
he has some catching up to do in this case.
Huh?
He has some catching up to do in this case.
Yeah, but we need so many lawyers, is what I'm trying to understand.
Well, they asked the same question in the O.J. Simpson case. OJ had equal amount of attorneys.
Yeah, but it was a murder case, a double homicide.
Well, you listen. This is Mr. Combs is facing life.
No, I'm not thinking about I'm thinking about the quantity of evidence. In a double homicide, there's going to be a lot of evidence. I could see you needing to have a number of attorneys to sort through and sift through that. And I know that there's a lot of evidence here, but bringing attorneys on now, they're not really tasked with digesting all of the evidence now. That's probably an impossible task.
What we've seen in the YSL case, there were different attorneys that took, even for the prosecution, there were attorneys that questioned certain witnesses, and they had a skill for questioning certain witnesses.
Of course, I get that.
So, I listen. If I had his money and I was in a similar situation, I will spend every penny I had to get me the best outcome. And it seems like you spend a lot of money.
I agree with you. I'm not saying that you shouldn't exhaust all of your resources. I just know that sometimes too many cooks spoil the broth.
Okay, well, I tell you something, and ladies and gentlemen, if you're in New York City, we will have Attorney Shabbass outside the courthouse, and we will be talking to her as the testimony unfolds, and we want to get her take. So you're maybe seeing it here, but you're going to see us in front of the courthouse next. Well, we won't talk about the date. I don't want to put the dates out there.
Yeah, don't put the date out.
You know, I like to keep things close to my chest. 3 hours later.
3 hours later.
So
let's correct the typo in the title. You
Yeah,
got
we're gonna correct that. I'm not gonna correct it just yet, but you guys understand we're gonna correct it. You know, we're not hooked on phonics over here, but sometimes we have little typos.
He too fast sometimes. You know, he be quick with it.
Quick with it. Yo, rushing me. Hey, Mr. Byron, hurry up! Hurry, put the story. Hurry up! No, calm down. So today, during voir dire, we learned some things about some of the jurors, and one of the things that we learned was that I want to get juror 48. Juror 48. Well, I had to go through my notes, and we can come back to some of the jurors, but it does appear that they're halfway through their selection process. Almost
this phase of the selection.
This phase of it. Tomorrow they may conclude, but I think it may go to Thursday. To Thursday.
Okay, so tomorrow, how many did they have in a panel?
I think they had like 150.
Okay. All right. And so do you know how many they have left to go through tomorrow?
I don't know. I'll know in a little while. I'll have, as a matter of fact, I'll check my see if I have an update. But I think they have probably about another 60.
Okay.
60,
and
70.
So they make it through those tomorrow. And then Thursday, they can start the second phase, I guess.
They had the group. They brought the group in today.
Mm-hmm.
They put the group of jurors in today, and they asked them all questions. So
just like yesterday, right?
It's like yesterday, exactly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're gonna do that. I guess they're going through the 4 cause challenges for the entire panel first, and then they'll go through, I guess, preemptories, and they'll have a jury by the end of this week.
They will have a jury by the.
They should.
Yes.
They should.
So the family of Mr. Combs has intentionally stayed away from the court during voir dire, but the entire family will be there every day of the trial for what is estimated to be 2 months.
8 weeks.
8 weeks. They will be there every day of the trial.
Okay, that's good. He needs that support, and the jury, defendants. I guess I will say a lot of defendants or defense attorneys discount how often the jury is paying attention to who is in the gallery, right? And so they're looking to see who's coming to support. So it is important for him to have a good showing, both family and friends, to come and support him.
And I suspect that Cassie too will have her family. Well,
only on the day that she's testifying.
Only day she's testifying, exactly.
Mm-hmm. Only on that day. Otherwise, they don't have any reason to be there. Only on the day that she's testifying.
We know the makeup of the
days. It may not be one day. It may be days. I can't. Yeah.
We know the makeup of the defense team. They have 2 African Americans and about 5 non-African Americans on their team.
Mm-hmm.
The prosecution however, has no people of color on their prosecution team, which is interesting, especially when Damian Williams, at the time this case was indicted, was the HINC.
Right.
For those who don't know, Negro in charge.
No, there aren't a lot of Black prosecutors, unfortunately. So, especially on the federal level, it's even a smaller percentage than on the state level. So maybe they just aren't available.
So do you see?
Maybe they don't want. Maybe they didn't want to be a part of the trial. That part, right?
Do you see them adding any additional prosecutors to this, or that it's done?
Not at this late stage of the game. unless something happens to one of the ones that are, that's on the trial.
So I don't know, the optics, again, the optics is very important in this case. The optics is extremely important in this case. And the jurors, we learned this in the YSL. I mean, it was a total black prosecution team. Well, almost, with the exception of, I forgot these are the non-black attorneys, but they had a predominantly black prosecution team.
Yeah.
Compared to the defense, who had a predominantly, with the exception of Mr. Adams, so the optics is pretty interesting.
It's more than just optics. So there is and has been some case law that shows that jurors tend to listen to white attorneys and give what they say more credibility than they do what black attorneys say.
What?
Yes. That should not surprise anyone.
I'm pulling your leg.
Right? That shouldn't surprise anyone. But that's a reality, right? And so the balance is to have the black attorneys do the grunt work, which is the cross-examinations, but have the white attorneys do the openings and the closings.
Okay, so who do you think will do the opening for the government? Miss Comey? No, for the government.
Oh, for the government?
Yes.
I haven't paid a lot of attention, but probably Comey's the one who's been sort of in the forefront of it.
Right.
So she's definitely either going to close or open. And I don't know the names of the other team members.
Okay. So your thoughts on the sequestration of jurors. Do you think at this point, because there was some testimony yesterday, when I say testimony, during the question, not testimony, but questioning, there was one juror in particular who saw something about the case on his phone, and he was an attorney. This was an attorney that looked at his phone. This was an attorney who looked at his phone and saw what other jurors were picked. So this is an attorney. And he said this.
What a dummy. What a dummy. I mean, anything is possible in this trial, but the last thing you want to do is have to sequester a jury for 2 months. That is not what they want. It is extremely expensive. You might have juror rebellion as a result of that.
I'm listening.
So I don't think, unless it becomes a pervasive problem, that the court is going to sequester this jury. I think it's expected that there will be some jurors that, can't avoid or were unable to avoid a news story, or they inadvertently saw a social media post. I think that there's room for that. I think the court is going to make room for that throughout these proceedings and respond accordingly. I'm sure they will be admonished daily by the court and reminded, of their oath and their responsibility to avoid social media and news about the trial. Hopefully they do it.
Well, Ike, I appreciate you coming on.
Thank you for having me.
You're much appreciated. Hopefully I'll see you in a couple of days downtown. And
yeah, I'll making my way downtown.
Hey, listen.
Singing, right?
Hold on a second. What we got to do at some point is hit up Carnegie Deli. I was there last week, and they have this pastrami sandwich. Oh my goodness! What? Okay.
Dennis, I don't eat meat, so why would you be trying to?
Okay, hold on. In that
case, in front of me, like ew.
Okay. Forget the story. Okay, all right.
We'll eat when my oldest son was in my belly. he will be 30 years old.
I meant vegan pastrami. Oh my goodness! See, listen. I did something last week that I will never do again. You know how they have the food trucks on the like down Times Square, and, and,
you
and they
roll
have
the dice.
I'm like,
You rolling dice with your life. You ate something off a food truck in New York City.
We'll talk about that later. I will never do it again. Like, what do you think? They just take the meat out and don't cook it?
That's disgusting. That's
oh my goodness. But I can thank you for coming on. I appreciate you. I really do.
All right, family. Thank y'all for having me. I love you. I really do. I really do.
Same here. Peace. Oh boy, ladies and gentlemen, thank you guys for coming in. Listen, this story here is I want to read some comments now. I didn't get an opportunity to read some. I see a bunch of you here checking in. Hold on a second. You have over 2,800 people on Twitter. Hey Twitter, how you doing, Twitter? Come on over here to YouTube, Twitter. Come over here to YouTube. Shout out to, hold on, Spitting Fire. You got to hit me up. You know, I got that thing for you. I got that thing. We're going to correct the typo, D. I see that. I see the typo. We're going to correct that. Okay, next caller, please. Let me see here. Let's see here. What's up, Jerome? I see you, Jerome. Let's see here. Let's see here. Let's see what stands out here. Make those comments stand out. Right, Brenda, I see that. Brenda says she acted on her situation as soon as it happened. Yes, she did. She surely did. Okay, hold on. Let's see here. I think the move. I think it's a good strategic move. I think it is. I think it's a really good strategic move. And who else do you think, guys? Who else do you think should do the cross examination of Cassie at this point? Who else do you think should do the cross examination? I think that I don't think a man should cross examine Cassie. I don't think so. I really don't. Who do you guys think should cross examine if it's not Miss Westmoreland? Who else would there be? Miss Teeny, Garagos, but I don't see any male cross examining Cassie at all. That would be a very uncomfortable position to be in. I agree with you, D. I totally agree with you. While I'm at it, I want to shout out. I did shout out my guy Curtis from Patchwork Studio. I did shout him out. He's probably in the chat. He ain't going to tap in. Curtis like to hang in the bushes. I also want to shout out Rocky Thunder. I saw Rocky on Twitter. Rocky got out the bushes and pulled up. Shout out Rocky Thunder. She's a New York Times bestseller. Congrats, Rocky. But this case tomorrow's going to be a very interesting day. We may pull up some of the. I'm waiting for these dailies to come in. Yes, Grant, I agree with. Yeah, okay. Well, you told me to ask. I'm gonna let you ask the question. So D asked this question. Hey, ask chat. If assaulted, would you go to the police or would you file a lawsuit or both? That's D's question. What would you do? Just leave your answer right there in the chat. And Torrance Grant, it's Brian Steele. You can't be jacking that man's name up. It's Brian Steele, Torrance. Judith said police. Yes, she did. She surely did. She said the police. I have an idea. Well, I can't really say, but I would just say just tomorrow or Monday. Yeah, Monday. I guess Sunday. Probably I'll drop it on Sunday. I think I'll drop it on Sunday. But I saw something that someone else said, but they didn't. They what they said about picking Miss Westmoreland. They essentially said that they and it was Milagro, I believe. Shout out to Milagro Grams. I saw your comment. Oh, I heard your comment, Milagro. My only thought is that it makes sense to have someone that, on the team that can, I guess, ask the right questions. And now that this has hit the media and it's pretty explosive development in the case, I wonder if the defense will now do a strategic move in this case as it relates to keeping it on the case, or I don't understand whether or not this was something that the entire team talked about prior to her coming on the case, or they knew this full well that they're going, that her being there would be significant based on what had happened to her in the past. I don't know. And I also want to know whether or not the other team members knew about this, because this happened a long time ago. It happened a long time ago. And I knew about the civil part of it years ago, but this is a interesting development. Very interesting. And D, I agree with you. But ladies and gentlemen, I thank you for coming in. I may or may not be back on live. If there's something else that breaks in this case between now and the morning, I will be back live. Make sure you follow me on Twitter for my live updates. And once again, ladies and gentlemen, I appreciate you coming in. And we're going to see you on our next live. With that, good night.